What is going on, Alpha Hunters? It is a very marvelous Monday. We are not seeing crazy movement on the market today. We're seeing a little bit of bearishness to kind of start the day because we did have a little gap up today. Nothing crazy. I guess it was about 1/4% gap up. All right, maybe it was crazy. Not really. But we did pull back there in the first 30 minutes, and then even in the next 30 minutes, kind of a little bit of a pullback. So that's kind of the way the day's gone. It's just been we'll say a very gentleman's like pullback. Nothing crazy though. Currently, market's down 0.2%. So we'll see if that kind of continues into the rest of the day. Maybe it does. Um, as you kind of know, the way we kind of closed out on Monday, and we'll talk more about the daily picture when we get there. Well, the way we kind of closed out on Monday was not, or Friday of last week, was not exactly the best. And maybe the market is due for a little bit of a pullback here going forward. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the daily picture. Qs, not as much of a gap up here, but definitely saw a little bit of selling. It's actually kind of strong here over the past 30 minutes, not selling down as much as the SPY. So I'd imagine the RSP got hit pretty good here over the past 30 minutes. We'll take a look at that. IWM, look at that sell off. Wow. So nice gap up here on the IWM, about a little bit over 1/4%. But man, look at that, just like a waterfall off a cliff right there. Just absolutely getting shredded. Wow. Past 45 minutes or so, not really doing a whole lot, but man, for about 15 minutes there, it just dropped. DIA, nice gap up, nice little run. It's kind of started the day for 20 minutes, kind of dropped off. They are negative also. IWM is down roughly 0.75%. DIA down 0.1%. RSP, yeah, so there it is. So RSP is down 0.75%. And you can see nice gap up here, up 1/4%. Hit right into this one, like 95, 165 area. And then it kind of reversed, came back down. And you can see kind of like the IWM just started absolutely just selling off. Not looking great because, I mean, we all know about the super concentrated market. I mean, the market's been super concentrated for a while. Money continues to kind of has flow into the big tech names, and then now you're seeing the rest of the market continue to kind of sell off. And what we kind of talked about on Friday, or kind of the end of the last week, was if any kind of break of the higher low of Friday's candle, that's the way you're going to go. And we clearly got that today. We are at the lows of really over the past month, though. I think any kind of like meaningful pop, maybe up into like 163.5, 164, you're probably going to get some sellers to come in, back in. I think we've just consolidated. I think we tried to break out into the higher direction a couple times over the past month. Every time we've done that, we've just reversed and come down. So, not looking the best there for a majority of stocks out there in the SP 500 world. DIA also throwing a pretty nice large upper wick today, like Friday. Okay. Doesn't look that great. IWM also has, I kind of thought maybe this would be the hold over over 202 that you're looking for on the IWM, and then just comes right back out on Monday and sells right back down, man. Jesus. I mean, I still like this area. I still like the IWM, the RSP type area. Mostly, it has a lot to do with capital. There's not a lot of capital out there in those areas. So when you get that market sell off and funds got to raise capital, they're not going to do it here because there's not that much capital for them to go liquidate. It's going to be here. It's going to be in Qs. And you don't know when something like that might happen, but this will be the area that gets hit. And until that happens, money's also going to continue to flow into these areas. So It is what it is. The Qs though, looking okay. I mean, it did pull into that 10 EMA. For now, I mean, it's holding above it. We'll see if it closes over that today. But if it does roll down and gets that close below the 10 EMA, as long as we don't gap up, kind of like we did back June 24th, where we had this close below it, and maybe you think, hey, we're going to break down. But kind of makes sense that we did bounce, right? Because we were trading up well above that 10 EMA for, I mean, 2 to 3 weeks. And we finally pulled down to it. It made sense that we at least bounced there once. And so I would imagine if we close below that 10 EMA again, we're probably going to be looking for probably at least a bit of a pullback. Probably the 20 EMA wouldn't hold it. You're probably going to be looking for a much more meaningful back down to the lower 160s where the 50 EMA would probably be. And yeah, 460 to maybe 450 type area where these highs were back in Q1. So, yeah, anyways, that's kind of what I'm thinking there on the Qs. As far as the SPY, well, the SPY isn't bouncing as much because we saw the RSP. Like, tech got hit initially to kind of start the day, and then it was like everything else. We saw the RSP just absolutely get just hit really hard in that second 30 minutes of the morning. And it doesn't look great, especially that Friday's candle, right? We got the gap up, we got the continuation. We were looking good. We got that first hour run. We hit the new all-time high. We reversed, come back down. So maybe Qs and SPY, and mostly it'll probably be led by the Qs. Like if you're gonna see any kind of meaningful pullback on the SPY, it's gonna have to come from the Qs and big tech. So that's really probably where you're gonna look for it from. And I would say you're probably looking to fill this gap down here around mid 530s. Probably these highs down here around 530. It's also where the 50 EMA would be. And then you're probably looking down around mid 520s where these highs would be back in Q1. That's kind of my thoughts. There's a few different levels in there that kind of look intriguing, but I mean, as for now, I think you would be looking to be buyers of dips on any kind of, further pullbacks from the all-time high. How far would some of those pullbacks be to fill that gap that we had back over here on January 11th? That'd be a 2.5% pullback. To me, that's not significant. Down to the highs that we had here in mid-May, that would be about a 3 1/3 pullback down to where the 50 EMA would probably be as well. About a 3.5% pullback. We'll say 3.5%. And then go back to the highs back in Q1. I mean, that'd be maybe about a 5% pullback. And that might be a more reasonable pullback. I guess going from our recent highs, 7.5. Where would 7.5% be? So 7.5% would be down here, which would be about where this pivot level was. We had some consolidation back before, and then where would it be? About a 10%. 10% would be back down to this low. Okay, and so let's think about that. So if we got a 10% pullback and we set up and we came back down to these lows, that would be that would be really kind of interesting because typically trends you don't want to see come back down to previous kind of support levels where you bounced and you've extended a rally or you've extended a run, because then you set up the possibility of, let me get out the fancy marker, right? So if you come back down, chop, and you come back down to this level, right? Come back down to that level or so. Then you set up the possibility of a shoulder, kind of head and shoulders look. Also, you set up that possibility of, even if you don't make the shoulder, but maybe you just top out here and roll over, you set up possibility of like lower highs kind of start to come in, especially if you then break that level. Because once you then break that level, even if you don't get a high bounce like that, you just kind of a little bit more of a shallow bounce and you roll over. But you break that level, now you set up lower highs and lower lows. And now it gets rather interesting because people start to really, really become active investors, especially in a period where people haven't been active investing at all. People have been very much passive investing. So, are we due for a bit of a pullback? Yeah, we're due for a bit of a pullback. I think there's some good levels out there. I don't think those are meaningful levels, like as far as like percentages from the all time highs that we just hit on Friday. That would say like that's a normal annual like how much you'd pull back annually. Like this drawdown that we had back in Q1, early Q2, was about 5.5%. That's nothing. Like we should pull back. I think the annual average is what like on bull markets like 7.5 to 9%, 10%, something like that. So that's why 7.5 to 10% is going to be like down into this zone here, and I think that's that to me would be much more reasonable. So, but if we break this low, it's just man, you're going to get a. I think you'd probably get a pretty strong bounce. I think you're going to get a lot of people to try to be the dip buyer if we break that low, especially off this horizontal line here around 480. That's the previous all-time high going back to 2022, beginning of 22, late 21. I think it's the very beginning of 22. And so we never really fully kind of broke out and retested into it. I thought we might have done it here back in Q1, but we didn't. So it kind of sets up, or Q2, I guess that was Q2. So it sets up that maybe we do that this time. But still, that would be a breaking of this level, and it's a possibility of a lower high, lower low kind of situation. And yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating like here, you're gonna play for the bearish play here for the next year and a half. I'm just saying, hey, you know, we might be due for a little bit of a pullback here. Makes sense. It just kind of makes sense. As far as transport, pull up transports, they've actually been doing okay here recently. They were really bad in Q2. I mean, absolutely awful. They've been holding tough here recently. Obviously, getting hit quite a bit today, but they've been trying to hold it together. So, continue to keep an eye on that. But as for now, not really breaking down as much as what they were in Q2. So we'll see if they can kind of base out here. VIX, Monday gap up, I guess. Not even Monday morning, but just the Monday gap up on VIX makes perfect sense because it happens basically every week. So VIX up a little bit. DXY throwing a nice huge lower wick there. Looks pretty good to be bullish here on the old dollar. Yeah, the old Dixie dollar looking pretty good there. GLD, man, still just consolidating, basing here. Not doing a whole lot. All right, that's all we got. Yields, man. Yields looking young and spry. Looking like they got bouncing them legs again. It looks pretty good. So they did take out briefly. They did take out this high from June 10, which that was done very recently and has come back down a little bit from that. Real quick, what was it that we got news-wise around 9 o'clock? You see some volatility here. I didn't even think we had major news kind of going on today. There's no news here. So don't really know what the market was responding to. It's not at least on that list from TradingView. So maybe there was something. I'm not sure. But there you go. I mean, looking pretty good right now. So 10 and 2 inversion really starting to climb. Okay. 10 and 2 inversion, climbing hard. HYG, kind of talked about the bonds at the end of last week with how yields started to come to life, especially on Friday. They had a very strong move on Friday. Bonds not going to be looking good. So they're at I think I would say yields right now at a level that I wouldn't be surprised if we have a little bit of pause, but bonds, man, they are just getting dump trucked right now. Well, it's a pretty good drop there on the LQD. TLT also seeing a pretty good drop there. Now, just also be a reminder that they did also pay dividends on the TLT. What about the LQD? LQD did as well, and the HYG. So all three of these kind of paid dividends. So this gap down is also incorporating the dividend into that. So let's see. So TLT closed at 981. Did gap down roughly $1.38, and it paid a 29-cent dividend. So $1.10 of that gap down is like real price gap down, and then roughly 30 cents of that is basically dividend gap down. So just be aware of that. And then, but yeah, bonds not looking great there. All right, take a look at sector rotation throughout the day. All right, we got some things to kind of look at. Let me hide all that. So discretionaries leading the day currently. Tech, or healthcare also outperforming pretty good. Tech has come back pretty good. Financials slightly outperforming there. Underperformers, you got energy, staples, utilities underperforming, communications underperforming, industrials, materials, and real estate. Now it makes sense that real estate's kind of dragging as yields are moving higher. Yields or real estate are very much inverse of each other's. And if you take a look at tech, this makes perfect sense on this kind of like light blue line here. It makes sense that we saw tech get hit early on, XLK, and then it has kind of steadily come back. It's actually doing not too bad now, but yeah, it got hit kind of to start the day pretty good, and then wasn't getting hit as much in some sell downs that we were getting later on. So makes sense. As far as intraday performance, you can see tech has actually come back, actually leading the day intraday. Not taking into account the gap down. And then you got healthcare discretionaries outperforming. Underperformers is everything else: financial, staples, energies, communications, utilities, and real estate, industrials, and materials. All right. So that is all that. Kind of wrap up. We'll take a look around the market. There was one thing I got a question about on the market outlook video about seasonality, but I'll address that tomorrow because I wanted to put it in a midday recap video, or kind of talk more about that. But since I talked a little bit too long about the SPY and Qs about maybe what price levels we dropped down to or pull back to, I feel like this is already long enough. So I'll probably just talk about that comment or question tomorrow, and I'm not going to address that today. AMD's down 4.25%. What is going? I don't even know what I'm on SPX. That's why. So AMD hit on the open. Okay. Yeah. AMD not looking great. AMD's had a couple different opportunities here to kind of like, bounce and run, breaking some downtrends. It did it back over here in like Q1, Q2 kind of time period. It broke and then it just kind of fizzled out. And then it had like another one. Let me get the marker. It had another one like right here kind of break down. It was just kind of like hugging like right there. and broke it right there on one day on June 20th. And that was but it didn't hold at the higher end of the day, like up in this area. It kind of sold back off a little bit, and it's never really kind of got its horse legs back under it. I'm honestly, AMD's not looking great. It's not looking great. All these opportunities it has to kind of like keep bouncing and going higher, and it's not doing it. And it's definitely not one that I want to be bearish on AMD by any means, because I don't like being bearish on semiconductors. Never have been. Ever since I've been around investing, it's kind of like food. It's gotten to where semiconductors are like food. It's very difficult to be bearish on them because people look for the opportunity to be buy the dip on semiconductors any chance they can. I mean, everything in the modern world, I mean, it has semiconductors in it, so it's such a pain to look for bearish plays. You'd have to look for real business issues on a semiconductor company. And right now, it's hard to find those business issues because they're all doing pretty well. We got Lowe's, we got AZO, we got Orly, all down pretty good. Okay. So, is that AutoZone? AZO, right? AutoZone getting hit pretty good today, over 4% down. Okay. ORLY, O'Reilly, also down, but neither one of these had earnings. Lowe's, let me get that out of the way. Lowe's down 2.5%. So I didn't really see what the deal is. Is Home Depot? Home Depot down. ADC, didn't. Yeah, they didn't have earnings. They already did. So what is the deal? It's really weird. We've gotten just some really. I think transports got hit recently, or not? Was it transports? Not transports. TPR. Tapestry. It's Etsy. Wow, Etsy used to be so much larger on the market cap. I can't believe they've gotten that small. Etsy down almost 3%. Talk about a fall from grace, this guy. Woof. Used to be up in the high 200s. Now it's continuing to fall below 60. And this is what a lot of people are talking about. It's like the concentration in the stock market is getting so top heavy. Lowe's. I mean, Lowe's hasn't done really anything over the past 2 years. Home Depot. Yeah, Home Depot hasn't either. What about Coke? Coke, no. Pepsi, not really. Pepsi even looks kind of worse. Just a lot. There's a lot of companies that just hasn't done anything, and then you SP 500's up crazy amounts. But I mean, yeah, we all know where it's coming from. It's coming from the Qs and Nvidia. It's just crazy, man. Yeah, when the market will turn. Best Buy. Man, Best Buy also used to be a big one a long time ago. Yeah, the market turns, man. It'll turn quick. There'll be a mad rush to protect the capital. And honestly, I think the areas that'll get hit the most will be the legacy, kind of more of the legacy. I'd say legacy, but the older big tech guys. I'll say that, like Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet. I don't think Microsoft has much, but Alphabet, Amazon, Meta. I think those will be the guys that get hit a lot more. I'm not saying Nvidia probably wouldn't get hit because you're having the whole market so off, especially in a big tech group like that. Everything would get hit. I get that, but I think the opportunities for those guys are rapidly coming to an end, especially for how much money I think investors are about to realize they are forking out for the hardware, but they are not making up on the revenue side. They're not bringing in AI business. Not saying that they aren't making it up. Not to say they're not bringing in business. They're not bringing in enough business that they are spending on AI hardware. There you go. So Apple bouncing pretty good today. I mean, Apple's up 2% and the market's flat. Think about that. Microsoft up 1%. Nvidia is now basically flat. It has come back. I mean, when did the market get hit, or when did the Qs get hit? Right here, when Nvidia was selling off, first 20 minutes. So, Alphabet basically flat right now. Okay, Meta's down 1%. Yeah. Amazon up 1.25%. TSLA is looking pretty good though. Yeah, TSLA is looking pretty good. So I would say we kind of talked about this over the past like week. To me, this thing was probably going to run to this 208 level, fill this gap that we had. It never quite filled it back in late February, so it definitely filled it today. To me, I wouldn't be in this thing anymore. But the thing that's kind of nice about Tesla right now is one, they're the most profitable electric vehicle maker out there. And there's been a lot of electric vehicle companies go bankrupt over the past year, 2 years. I think the latest one was Fisker. So that is competition that is leaving the market. You've even had the big three, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, uh, or Stellaris or Stellantis or whatever it is now. They've even mentioned that they are kind of dialing back the electric vehicle stuff. They just said there's not a lot of demand there, but yet Tesla keeps proving there is demand there. There's just a difference, right? If you want an electric vehicle, you go to an electric vehicle car maker, which is Tesla. Also, you go to one that's been proven and it's been doing it for over a decade, Tesla, right? So Tesla might be the only play really for electric vehicles, and that's not really talking into the China market. China market and the competition there hugely different. So, well, I'm not gonna get into all that because, dude, they're doing some crazy things over there with electric vehicles. But actually, kind of cool to see. SP 500, SPY. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna be shocked if we continue to see some selling in. I'm not expecting to be like a straight just drop off, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see selling. You can see that, yeah, we're getting flows back into Nvidia. So, but how's the RSP doing? RSP, I mean, the RSP's not even bouncing. It's just kind of hanging out down here. I mean, IWM's at daily lows right now. DIA is trying to bounce here. I mean, but it also has Microsoft and Apple in it. So, I mean, it's the Qs that are kind of basing, doing somewhat decent. And It's tech, man. It's tech. Tech sold off to that 20 EMA today. That's what it is. The tech sector fund, XLK, sold off and bounced off that 20 EMA today. First time it hit that since beginning of June. So we'll see what happens by the end of the day today, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some selling come in. Especially like the rest of the week. Especially if yields keep pushing higher like this. Man, yields. I love talking about yields, bond market stuff. It's so much fun. Any major news going on out there? Chewy surges. Roaring Kitty 6.6. Chewy, I don't remember. Yeah, there it is. I remember their ticker, but yeah. I mean, it gapped up, and it looks like there was a lot of people took that opportunity to sell that news. I mean, this thing's down 6%. Wow, crazy. That is a crazy move. Tesla is running out of excuses for its prolonged sales slump. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we just talked about electric vehicles, but dude, once you kind of soak up the demand for electric people that want to buy electric vehicles, there's a lot of people that don't want to buy electric vehicles. How Amazon plans to spend billions on AI to stay ahead. Yeah, you buy NVIDIA chips because there's not much else you can do. All right. So we'll see what happens by the end of the day. But yeah, we've seen a little bit of selling today. We're just not seeing much bounce in most of the other stocks. It's really all coming in big tech areas. But we'll see what happens by the end of the day. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see some selling come back in. Alpha hunters, have a great rest of your day. Take care.